The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, released December 13th, 2024. Directed by Kinji Kamiyama. Written by Jeffrey Addis, Will Matthews, and Phoebe Gittins. Starring Brian Cox, Gaia Wise, and Miranda Otto. Rotten Tomatoes score, 51%. Metacritic, 54. IMDb, 6.7. MPA rating PG-13. Welcome back to Real Reviews. Like always, I am your host, Lee. Today we are talking about The War of the Rohirrim, an anime-style story that happens before the events of The Hobbit. Is it a good entry into the Lord of the Rings world? Let's talk about it. I want to start out by talking about the art because some will surely find it jarring. The backgrounds and scenery look like a painting, and anything in motion is drawn in a more anime style. This feels weird because it becomes apparent very quickly that the backgrounds are stagnant. Everything is beautifully done, it just feels weird, and it didn't really work for me. But, and a very important but, they are consistent, so it isn't a reason to remove a point. How is the story? It is a slight twist on a revenge story. The trailers kind of gave that away. That starts within about the first 15 minutes or so. The slight twist is adding in class resentment, and misplaced pride is driving forces behind the revenge. Don't go in expecting a super unique story. Part of this is the reliance on tropes, and then the fact that it is in a fantasy world that cannot have anything that can dramatically change the lore, and the world already has pre-established rules and timelines that must be obeyed. But I will say that they picked a good area of the world to build on, especially as it hasn't been touched in Rings of Power. I do think that they succeeded in the main goal, which was clearly to build out the lore of Rohan. The characters are mostly pretty awesome. My favorite is probably Alwyn, the attendant to Hera, our main character. No one in this is entirely incompetent or awful or anything crazy. Helm, the king of Rohan, is a pretty big badass. I do have a problem related to him, and that is a few times they separate from what has been seen as possible in the universe to make him be a bigger hero. Is this because the narrator is unreliable? Only because of who the narrator is. I don't think that is supposed to be the point. If you want to know what kind of character is Hera, just imagine Merida from Brave, and you will be pretty close. Wolf, our antagonist, is pretty interesting because they layer a lot of tropes on him. Revenge, pride, false perceived slights, and they all work pretty well together. The other side characters are also done pretty well. They each help add to the motivations of our protagonist and antagonist. The story has a few moments where it feels like it drags, but they don't last super long, so they are bearable. They are mainly just the transitions from the action scenes. Pretty obviously, I enjoyed this movie. I think all of the tropes were blended together well enough to have an interesting product. From here on, we are doing spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, come back after you have. So the general story of this movie is Wolf wants to rule Rohan because Helm Hammerhand killed his father at the start of the movie, and because Hera won't marry him. She pretty explicitly said that she doesn't want to marry anyone. She seems a bit obsessed with the Shield Maidens, likely largely due to Alwyn, who swore to never leave her side, and Alwyn is awesome. She stands her own against numerous warriors in the movie and is one of the very few characters that doesn't get injured. But even after Hera is very upfront with Wolf, he thinks it is because Hera thinks she is better than him, which doesn't seem to be the case, as she is pretty down to earth. Also, the fact that Wolf's father picks a fight with a massive man named Hammerhand is insane, and it gets him killed in one blow. This highlights a weird part that I didn't understand. So Fricka gets in 3 punches, and then Helm hits him and kills him, and then says, "You all saw I only hit him once." I don't know why they put this in. Literally all of the other characters see Fricka antagonize him, and then die after a single hit. Helm didn't need to explain. So Wolf declares that he will get revenge, and that leads him to being banished from Rohan. This leads to him leading some of the tribes outside of the region and getting mercenaries. Hera gets kidnapped, and this is when we get the first look at Alwyn showing off. With a sword and a small shield, she is able to fight off Wolf and his general with no issue at all. They escape, and we get the bulk of the story. Wolf's war against Rohan. A problem I have with Helm starts here. He doesn't listen to any advice from anyone, and that is why everything goes so terribly. Due to his bad decisions, both of his sons die, and the citizens have to escape to Hornburg, which we recognize as Helm's Deep. This leads to at least 3 of the best fights in the movie. Helm versus 2 orcs and a minotaur-looking creature. This is also what I will call a straight-up anime fight, as Helm almost single-handedly defeats this massive monster with no weapon. Then almost immediately after he holds the line at the gate to Helm's Deep until he freezes to death. It looks cool enough. Overall, I rated this movie a perfect score. Again, it isn't perfect, but everything works the way it is intended, and overall, it is an enjoyable experience that I would recommend, especially if you like Lord of the Rings. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. I tend to have 2 videos out per week. Real reviews like this or AI reviews depending on releases. Until next time.